So for the Caliphate of Umar Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu, we know that Umar Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu has been elected as a second caliph. Uh, Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu, during his illness, he has uh, nominated Umar Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu as his successor. Okay, first of all, we must know about his election, and you have to mention that Umar Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu discussed the matter in Shura. Sorry, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu had discussed the matter in Shura, the advisory council, and he expressed his desire that Umar would be his successor. Okay, some people like Talha, okay, he had raised his reservation that Umar radhiyallahu anhu was very much harsh and he is quick in temper, and it would be very much difficult for them to uh, that to accept him as a caliph. Okay, that would be very much difficult for them. So Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu said that the burden and the responsibility of Khilafat would make him very much lenient. Okay, so he said that it is due to his leniency because Abu Bakr is very much lenient. कहा कि उनकी सख्ती और उनकी जो strictness है, it is due to the lenience of Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu and due to his gentle nature. When the responsibility of Khilafat would come upon him, he would be very much mild and he would be very much kind towards everyone. And it happened. So Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, he dictated the appointment of Hazrat Umar to Usman radhiyallahu anhu. Okay, this is how he has been, and this was informed to the general public that Umar radhiyallahu anhu would succeed uh, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. Okay, after the death of Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, Umar radhiyallahu anhu took the charge of the office. Umar radhiyallahu anhu ruled over the Islamic Empire for uh, 10 years, 10 and more than 10 years. We can say 10 and a half years, 10 years and 6 months. And during that time, he had also introduced several reforms. So he has not only conquered many areas, and Islamic Empire has expanded far and wide in different regions, but along with that, different that he had introduced several reforms, several administrative reforms, which made his rule very much very much famous, and it is considered as the golden era of the Islamic Empire. Fine. So we have two major questions from this topic. One is about his administration, and the second could be about the expansion of the Islamic Empire, which happened during his Khilafat. So first of all, we will talk about that the way he ruled and he administered the Islamic Empire during his 10 years rule. Okay, for this we have to focus on different types of reforms which he had introduced. So we will begin with the political reforms. You can start your answer by saying that Umar radhiyallahu anhu ruled for about 10 and a half years, and not only the vast area has been conquered, but along with that Umar has introduced several reforms which make this his rule very much remarkable and famous. Okay, he has introduced several reforms. Okay, he had a very good administration over the whole empire, and his government was a unitary form of government. Okay, unitary form of government का मतलब होता है जिसमें the authority and power rests with one person, although he would take action by council. Okay, so there were two councils. Okay, the first one, the higher one, was Majlis Shura, okay, which comprised of the senior and the eminent companions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And there was Majlis Am, okay, and Majlis Am had the representation from different tribes from different areas. So important decisions were taken by Majlis Shura, while if the matter was of general public, it was of the importance of the general public, then it was discussed in Majlis Am, and a public opinion was sought and it was taken. Okay, it was a unitary form of government, and along with that, Caliph would take decision and he would take the council into confidence before taking any important decision. And there were two houses, we can say two houses, there were two council. The upper council was Majlis Shura and the lower council was Majlis Am. Fine. In order to administer this huge empire well, he had divided the empire into different provinces. Okay, there were 12 provinces in the empire, and these provinces were further divided into districts, 100 districts, and these were governed by the governors. Okay, he appointed governors over them. Governors were known as wali, and there were tax collectors, administrators, and they were known as amil. Amil were the tax collectors, and there were qazi. Qazi were the judge. So these were the three major positions, major posts in every province. So in every province there were these three key posts, key positions. Okay, along with that, you have to mention that these people were given an appointment letter. The written documents have been given to them about their responsibilities, their limitations, their okay, whatever would be their salary, their everything has been described. Fine. And at the time of the appointment, they had to declare their assets so that by the time of their retirement, it could be checked that whether they had amassed wealth from some illegal means or not. Okay, this was done to eradicate the corruption. Okay, to check that whether they had amassed wealth from some illegal sources or not. So it was started that they had to declare their assets. और आजकल भी ऐसे ही होता है कि इलेक्शन से पहले जो लोग होते हैं मिनिस्टर्स होते हैं वो क्या करते हैं कैंडिडेट्स दे डिक्लेयर देयर एसेट्स इन द इलेक्शन कमीशन. So this has been initiated from that time during the time of Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu anhu. So all these governors and all these people who were on the key posts, they were required to live a very simple life. Okay, they have to take the oath that they would live very simple and they would avoid from all types of extravagance and they would not show off their wealth. Okay, and they would not eat the sifted flour and they will not keep a porter at their door so that they will remain accessible to the general public and they will keep the door of their offices open so that anyone can come and can have a complaint whatever the problems that they are facing. Okay, the key responsibilities of these people, like particularly the governor was not only to administer the province, but he was also responsible to establish the religious affairs, okay, their security, okay, and also taking care the rights of the zimmis. Zimmis are the non-Muslims living in the Islamic Empire are known as zimmis. Okay, it's giving their salaries on time, development of the province, and looking into the social affairs of the whole province. These were the key responsibilities of these people on the key posts. So at the time of Hajj, they were asked to assemble in Makkah, and here the Caliph would listen the complaints from the people directly, and he will solve that matter then and there. Okay, on the occasion of Hajj every year, he would call all the governors to listen complaints from the people directly. Another important type of reforms which he has introduced are the military reforms. Okay, before Umar anhu, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad peace upon him and the first Caliph Abu Bakr, there was no regular state army. Okay, there was no regular army. Umar anhu introduced it as a state department. ठीक है, एक organization, एक सरकारी इदारा उसको बना दिया. He made it as state department. Before that, there was no regular army, and whenever there was the need of the army, people were asked to volunteer themselves and to provide their services for the defense. But Umar anhu made it a state department and he registered, a register was maintained, and the list of the people providing their services, their salaries, their ranks were fixed. There were two categories of the army at those times: those who formed the regular army and those who were called at a time when needed. There was the regular army and those who were living in their homes, but they were called whenever they were needed or required. Okay, the army was divided into two major divisions. Okay, there were two. He divided the forces into two major divisions. They were infantry and the cavalry. Okay, and these troops were stationed at far off places and they were provided with all the basic facilities like treasury and accountant, judge, and a number of physicians and the surgeons. The basic necessities were fulfilled there at that place. Fine. So there were stables and there were the cantonments were built at the time. Okay, and you have to mention there were two major cantonments built. Okay, two were in Iraq. In Iraq, he built two cantonments. Okay, in Iraq there was Kufa and Basra. Kufa and Basra were in Iraq, and one was in Egypt. In Egypt, there was a cantonment that was known as Fustat. We will talk about these places Okay, later on when we mention that how the Islamic Empire has expanded. So these troops were given all the necessary equipments, and it was required that these soldiers to be expert in the horse riding, swimming, archery, running bare feet. Okay, these were the basic skills which were required by the troops that they have to. And these troops were they remain available. Okay, he built cantonments. Told you that garrison towns and the cantonments were built, and they were stationed outside the town so that these were built on the border, on the frontier, and so that they will remain available all the time whenever there was a need of the army. So these were the military reforms which Umar Radhiyallahu anhu had introduced during his rule. So we had talked about the political reforms and the military reforms. Umar Radhiyallahu anhu during his Khilafat he has also introduced financial reforms. For the first time, whether you are facing problem, I don't think so that their screen is shared with you. I hope with everyone. Okay, you can check your settings at why you are unable to see the screen. So Umar Radhiyallahu anhu has also introduced financial reforms also, and for the and there was a battle mal during the Caliphate of Abu Bakr Radhiyallahu anhu also. Umar Radhiyallahu anhu introduced battle mal in every province. Okay, in every province. Okay, in every province he has introduced battle mal. Battle mal is a public treasury. Okay, and the sources of income for the battle mal was zakat, ushar, khiraj, ghanima, jizya, and these were the khums. These were the major sources of income of the state. So there were uh, battle mal in every province, and he appointed an in charge over the battle mal, the one who was very much honest, the one who was very much okay. He was the in charge, and the headquarter of battle mal was in Medina. There was a central battle mal, and there was battle mal in every province. So provinces, after meeting their expenditure, their expenses, okay, they would send the surplus money, the surplus amount to Medina. The surplus amount was sent to Medina. Okay, everything was recorded, and for that purpose, he has established Diwan. Diwan are the registers. It is the practice of keeping the state records. Okay, so the registers were kept, and everything was recorded, and everything was maintained at from what were the sources of income and where it has been spent. These were the major sources of income of the state. They were zakat, Oshar is the agricultural tax, Khiraj is the tax taken from the non-Muslims on their land, Ghanima is the spoils of war, Jizya is the tax that is given by the non-Muslims to the Islamic Empire, Khumus is the tax that is collected from the Khumus and Rikaz is almost same, which is taken from the mines, okay, the produce of the mines. Also, he had allowed the non-Muslims to come over the Islamic Empire for the trade, and he had imposed 10% duty on them. Okay, they have to pay the 10% duty, as it was a practice during those days. Okay, Khiraj, I told you, Khiraj is a tax of land tax or the agricultural tax paid by the non-Muslims. Okay, the non-Muslims, the tax they pay on their agricultural produce is known as Khiraj. Okay, he did not allow the troops to own lands in the newly conquered areas. So he had passed a law because earlier क्या होता था कि whenever the army would conquer a land that was distributed amongst the conquerors, but he did not allow the troops to own land in the newly conquered areas. Okay, it was kept as a state property and it was given on khiraj. Okay, it was given to the non-Muslims. Okay, the non-Muslims were allowed to keep their property, and they would work on their land, and they will give the tax over these produce. Okay, Ushar is the agricultural tax given and paid by the Muslims. Okay, on their agricultural produce, that is known as Ushar. Ushar means 1/10. Okay, I hope that you know that in the topic of zakat we had discussed that agricultural tax is 10%, 1/10 of the agricultural produce if it is the land is irrigated naturally. So these were the major financial reforms which Umar Anhu had introduced during his Khilafat. So the troops were not allowed to own the lands in the newly conquered areas because if he would allow them, definitely they would have no idea how to tilt the land and how to make best use of this land, and the agricultural produce would be reduced, declined, and it may cause the food shortages for the Islamic Empire. That is why, because since he has experienced this problem, so he has passed this law that the troops are not allowed to own land in the newly conquered areas. Fine, these were the financial reforms which Umar Anhu has introduced. He has also introduced judicial reforms. Okay, he made judiciary completely independent from the executive. Okay, so that they would have they would be able to give their decision without any pressure, without any influence, and they would be able to pass their judgment freely. And Umar Anhu himself has acted as a judge on Medina, but later on he assigned this task, this office to Zaid bin Sabit. Okay, because it was difficult for him to keep two offices at a time. Okay, and he had appointed such people from the Muslim families. From those people were selected who were from the noble families, and he paid them high salaries to remove and to eliminate any bribe or any corruption. Okay, so these judges were appointed from the noble families, and they were given high salaries so that they will not be able to do anything that is against the justice. Fine, he several laws have been introduced, like punishment of 80 lashes for a drinker has been introduced during his khilafat, during his rule. Okay, some sources mention that more than 1,000 juristic pronouncements, okay, Islamic jurisprudence, Islamic laws, Islamic fiqh has been developed. Islamic laws were developed during his rule. Okay, like the punishment of 80 lashes for a drinker, for the one who gets intoxicated, has been introduced at that time. Okay, he showed displeasure when Judge Zaid bin Sabit showed some respect to him. Okay, he wanted that judges should treat everyone equally. Okay, he would not be impressed by the status or the rank of any other person. Okay, once Umar Anhu had appeared before Zaid bin Sabit in his court over a dispute of a land with Ubay bin Ka'b, and when Zaid Anhu showed some respect to Umar Anhu, Umar Anhu got annoyed. He got annoyed that, and he said to Zaid bin Sabit that you have to treat both of us equally. If you cannot treat both of us equally, then you are not fit for the post of judge. Okay, so he appointed judges from who belonged to the noble families, and they were given good salaries to stop bribery. So such reforms has been introduced by Umar Anhu during his rule in judicial matters. He had also introduced several social and religious reforms. Several other reforms have also been introduced by him. Like he had introduced the Islamic calendar for the first time. Muslims, they did not had any calendar. Okay, Umar Anhu introduced after having a detailed discussion with with Shura. They decided to start it with the month of Muharram and with the migration of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay, he has introduced several new departments which were not there at that time. Police department, postal system has been introduced. Okay, for the first time, census has been done. Okay, education has been made compulsory. Education department has also introduced by him, and through that he sent teachers to different parts of the Islamic Empire, and he made education compulsory. Okay, several okay, too much focus has been given on town planning, and two major cities have been built on a proper with proper planning. Okay, like Basra and Kufa. Okay, roads, highways, dispensaries, rest houses. Okay, these things have been established during this time. Okay, census has been done. Okay, census means that the counting of the people in a particular area. Okay, because so that he would have an idea that how much facilities are required, schools, hospitals, dispensaries, and what are the basic requirements in that particular area. So we can say that for the first time it was considered that it was the welfare state. Islamic Empire was a welfare empire. It was a welfare state, and it worked for the welfare of everyone living over there. Okay, Umar Anhu not only worked for the welfare of Muslims. Okay, even the non-Muslims were getting share from Baitul Mal. Once Umar Anhu saw a Christian old man begging, and when he came to know the reason that since he was unable to pay jizya, the tax which non-Muslims pay to the Islamic Empire, so since he was unable to pay jizya, Umar Anhu not only excluded him from the payment of jizya, but also he had fixed some amount for him from Baitul Mal. Okay, he fixed a certain amount for him from Baitul Mal. So even the non-Muslims, they were getting share the from Baitul Mal also. So it was the welfare empire. So these are the major reforms which Umar radhiyallahu anhu introduced during his 10 years rule. So whenever you have a question that what type of reforms Umar had introduced during and write about its administration, you have to discuss your answer in this way. Second aspect of his Khilafat is the expansion of the Islamic Empire. We have the Persian campaigns and we have the campaigns and with the wars which were fought against the Byzantines.